alert. President Biden expected to again celebrate his economic policies as he tries to sell voters on the success of his agenda. In just hours, he'll make remarks celebrating 1 year since the passage of his Inflation Reduction Act. Team Biden is going all in on the economy for 2024, but with sky-high prices and rock-bottom approval, he may have his work cut out for him. This is the Faulkner Focus. I'm Dagan McDowell in for Harris. Bidenomics, as they call it, is on the ballot. The president taking another victory lap yesterday in Milwaukee.
In case you haven't noticed, inflation is down too and it's going lower. And one reason we've seen inflation fall by 2/3 without losing jobs is that we're seeing corporate profits come back down to earth. You know, it's in stark contrast to the conservative Republican view, the so-called MAGA view, which is focused on corporate profits.
Not everyone is buying what Biden is selling. Republican lawmakers yesterday tore into the president's policies.
Even if inflation goes to zero tomorrow, we're still going to be stuck with these higher prices, which are a direct result of President Biden's economic policy. And do the people around the White House get it?
For those of us that live in real America, in middle America, Bidenomics means excessive inflation, excessive costs at the gas pump, at the grocery store.
Americans also seem to have a pretty negative view on the current state of our economy. One recent poll shows half of Americans think it's down and getting worse. Jackie Heinrich at the White House with more. Hey, Jackie.
Hey, Dagan, good morning to you. On the 1-year anniversary of the passing of this legislation that was supposed to turn the economy around, new polls are showing that the president still got a lot of work turning attitudes around about the economy. His approval rating drops to 37% on his handling of the economy and even lower to 30% for his handling of inflation. The president will give remarks later today on the 1-year anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act's passing, and we'll be watching to see if he reframes its purpose at all after he told a group at a Salt Lake City campaign fundraiser last week, quote, "I wish I hadn't called it that because it has less to do with reducing inflation than it does to do with dealing with providing for alternatives that generate economic growth." But the press secretary was out on TV this morning trying to set the tone.
We're talking about investing in America. We're talking about a fair tax code. We're talking about the biggest, largest climate action investment ever, as we were just talking about what's going on in Maui and the extreme weather. These are all incredibly important things.
Democrat Senator Joe Manchin, who famously surprised his conference by engineering the Inflation Reduction Act behind closed doors after the president's Build Back Better plan fell apart, pushed back this morning on the notion that this bill was ever supposed to be a climate bill, saying that he's beginning what he called an unrelenting fight against the administration's efforts to implement the IRA as a radical climate agenda. Dagan.
Jackie Heinrich, thank you so much for that. Jackie at the White House. Jackie DeAngelis joins me now, co-host of The Big Money Show, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. on the Fox Business Network.
Hi, good to see you.
Great to see you. If we just look at what Americans have faced under President Biden in terms of inflation, this Inflation Reduction Act, to quote Douglas Holtz-Aiken, there is no plausible channel by which the Inflation Reduction Act contributed to reduce inflation because consumer prices are up 16%. Food is up, 20% groceries.
This is how I look at it. You can go around the country, you can stand on your head. Just because you say something doesn't make it true. And the American people feel the impact of what you're talking about. A lot of this has been really sticky. A lot of it has not been worked through the system. And you know what? They always say, let's look at the core inflation number because it strips out food and gas, and those are very volatile. Well, core inflation is 4.7%. So we are not out of the woods yet. To counter the president's statement, the soundbite that we just played, the reason that you're seeing inflation a little bit lower is because of the job the Fed has done, hiking interest rates time and time again. The reason we haven't lost jobs in this economy is because you still have some of these stimulus programs that haven't been reined in. So people are still spending. When this all sort of comes together as a perfect storm that it's being set up to be, this economy is going to suffer. So he can go celebrate this all he wants. But this was a climate change bill. He finally acknowledged that. And the Americans are paying the price while the rest of the world isn't doing anything about climate change.
What the people who benefit from this climate bill are rich people and rich companies or cronies, quite frankly. And I'm going to quote more from what Douglas Holtz-Aiken wrote. The Inflation Reduction Act has accomplished nothing but to shovel hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars. And the climate portion is about $1.2 trillion, which is 3 times the original estimate. Hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars to large corporations and affluent Americans. Nobody's health care is cheaper. Nobody's environment is cleaner. Yippee-ki-yay.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Americans feel it on every aspect of their lives and their budgets. And you're right. That's what's going to resonate at the ballot box. Jackie Heinrich had the stats about how the president is polling when it comes to the economy, when it comes to inflation. And he's not doing well because people see through this. What I think is the most interesting is that he basically has sold our energy industry down the river to promote these policies that, as you mentioned, are benefiting certain companies, certain rich people, benefiting China as well, making a lot of components for this stuff while not paying attention to what's happening here. To me, it's about a larger agenda, which is basically, we all learn from our parents as we're growing up, right? So what I saw is my standard of living and my sort of normal, right? Kids growing up today are going to think having cars are a luxury, having air conditioning or washing machines that actually wash your clothes are a luxury. And they're going to sort of become resolved to this lower standard of living. What that is an indoctrination of socialism. To boot, think about what they're learning at school. You put this all together. And these will be our future leaders of America. So they're chipping away at capitalism here through acts like this and the rest of the policies we've seen.
Our fossil fuel industry is prosperity and power in our economy.
Yeah.
And gas prices are heading back up. They're up about 30 cents a gallon in the last month, about 31 cents a gallon. And because of that, because we just heard President Biden say inflation's going lower, which he's talking about the inflation rate. No, it's not.
Right.
Just based on what gas is doing, the consumer price index is going back up to about 3.6% annualized next month. And food is going back up, Jackie. So it's getting worse.
It is getting worse. And I think you're going to see the gas prices go up because at the end of the day, OPEC Plus wasn't making enough money when oil prices were slightly lower. Look, when we were the world's top producer of energy, we had some control over these prices. We were putting more supply in the market. Now you've given the power back to the folks overseas who need to make a certain amount of profit to do their business. At the end of the day, it's not just about our prosperity here regarding prices. It's also national security. So every day that passes, we keep giving up more and more power to everybody else instead of bringing it back home. And I think when people start to think about these policies and the choices that they want to make and who they want to see lead this country, these are going to come into their calculations.
I'm going to leave you with this.
Yeah.
So Holman Jenkins in the Journal writes this. Why are carbon emissions up? Green subsidies aren't working. CO2 emissions are growing faster than energy consumption. So last year, CO2 emissions were up 12% faster than energy consumption. Basically, you take all of this money, these subsidies, it's about over $1 trillion. That's like setting fire to borrowed money.
Literally.
And it causes working Americans to suffer.
Because just the last point, what he's not acknowledging, President Biden, is the technology is not there to meet this grand scheme of, going green across the board. That's the problem. And yeah, we are burning money.
And this is why Europe's heading in the other direction and we're going, down the tubes.
Right.
Jackie, great to see you.
Good to see
Jackie
you.
DeAngelis, a survivor of 5 kamikaze attacks, a torpedo strike during World War II, a NASA recovery vessel in the 60s, and a present-day icon of New York City tourism. The USS Intrepid today celebrating 80 years. The Navy aircraft carrier was first commissioned on this day, August 16th, 1943. CB Cotton is on site at the Intrepid as they honor this anniversary. CB, great to see you.
Hi, Dagan. Great to see you. And what an important day to honor more than 180 brave service members who fought for our nation's freedom aboard the USS Intrepid are here today. This is a patriotic homecoming for these veterans, the oldest among them, 99 years old. It was on this day 80 years ago when aircraft carrier Intrepid was commissioned. The combat vessel withstood attacks during World War II before later serving in the Cold War and Vietnam War. It was decommissioned in 1974 and is now a museum. Some of the veterans attending today's celebration were either phone operators, mechanics, engineers, or emergency crew members during their time aboard the ship. The first black aviator to fly from the ship is also here, marking the first time he's been back since his service. Before beginning his pilot training, get this, he had only taken a plane ride once in his life. More than 800 family members are expected to attend today. Some have flown from as far as California to reflect and remember. Those here hope younger generations will be reminded of those who've sacrificed for our country.
Freedom is not free. Freedom is not free. Every time I come aboard the ship, it's like a cemetery because we lost over 200 crew members. So it's solemn ground. There's so much history here. People don't realize how much history is aboard the ship.
Today is not only emotional, it's years in the making for some of these veterans who haven't returned to the ship in decades. More than 250 service members paid the ultimate sacrifice while serving aboard the Intrepid. Dagan.
CB Cotton at the USS Intrepid. Thank you so much, CB. Just 3 weeks ago, Hunter Biden's lawyers and now special counsel David Weiss agreed on that sweetheart plea deal. And now that it's collapsed, they're at odds over how to move forward. Plus, more claims of a two-tiered justice system after President Trump's fourth indictment, this time in Georgia. Leo Terrell accuses Democrats of abusing the system.
They're using the legal system for political gains. And basically what they're doing is they're attacking an opposing candidate through the legal system. That's not how our legal system works.
And Trump's 2024 rivals are split on what this all means for the Republicans. Alert, special counsel David Weiss and Hunter Biden's legal team butting heads over that failed sweetheart plea deal. Hunter's team says the government went back on the agreement and part of it is still valid. Weiss's team firing back, saying, quote, the government did not renege on the previously agreed upon plea agreement. The defendant chose to plead not guilty at the hearing on July 26th. Probation declined to approve the proposed diversion agreement. Thus, neither proposed agreement entered into effect. Hunter's attorney on Sunday said this.
On July 26th, what was very clear is that the prosecution presented the diversion agreement, which they signed, which we signed, and as an agreement of which they have described it as being a standalone, independent, bilateral agreement with two signatures on it. That agreement is different than the plea. The plea has not fallen. The plea did not go forward. The diversion agreement is already filed in court, and it has the signatures necessary for it to be binding.
The original deal had Hunter Biden pleading guilty to tax and gun charges in exchange for lighter punishment, 2 misdemeanors on the tax charges. Phil Holloway, former assistant district attorney and legal advisor to Georgia Sheriff's Department. Phil, great to see you. This is my opinion, and I'm just looking as an outsider looking in. This seems kind of like performance art and for show, because David Weiss, before he was named special counsel as the attorney in Delaware, worked side by side with Hunter Biden's attorneys to cobble this plea deal together. Weiss was responsible for this plea agreement. It blew up. He spent 5 years on the Hunter probe, and all he had to show for it was this plea agreement that Hunter Biden essentially got off. And then the statute of limitations was running out over that 5 years. And so and now all of this stuff has been buried into this Biden black hole of the special counsel.
Yeah, Dagan, great to be with you. It's very difficult to know how much of this is just for show, because what we really need is a true independent counsel, somebody from outside the Department of Justice. It's beyond ridiculous that Joe Biden's Attorney General appoints another federal prosecutor already working for the Department of Justice to prosecute and investigate Joe Biden's son for things that may even include his own father's participation. If ever there was a need for a true independent counsel, this is the case. It's no wonder that Hunter's lawyers are going to be fighting tooth and nail to keep that diversion agreement in effect if they can. They're going to try to enforce it just like it were a contract, Dagan. They're going to say we had an offer and we had an acceptance and we had a meeting of the minds, and therefore we get our sweetheart deal. But I don't agree. I think that Weiss is correct here in his publicly stated opinion. I think this diversion agreement was contingent upon other things. Those other things didn't fall into place, namely the judge signing off on it and approving it. But they want it because this is what keeps Hunter Biden out of prison and out of jail for that gun charge. The statute of limitations, by the way, is running on that. I think they're going to need to file something new, perhaps even an indictment. I believe the statute of limitations runs on that in October. But we really, really need an outside person who can bring all of the charges that are appropriate against Hunter Biden, and time is running out. Right. The statute of limitations is normally 5 years, and so potential crimes that he committed 5 years ago are falling off by the day in terms of being things that can be prosecuted.
Well, some of the major crimes, the information that was released by the Republicans on the Oversight Committee related to the $20 million payments, those dates of those payments, those have already fallen by the wayside, are already time barred, as Andy McCarthy has pointed out. And David Weiss has said repeatedly that he was never prohibited from taking this case to other jurisdictions or bringing charges in other areas. So why did he need the special counsel designation then?
Well, that's exactly the point. I think the whistleblowers are correct. I think that all of this culminated into such political drama and political pressure that the Attorney General felt he had to come out now and formally designate him as special counsel, because I think everything up to this point was just going to be swept under the rug. But still, this is like the fox guarding the hen house. Weiss is the one who slow walked this the whole time. What business does he have being appointed the special counsel now? We really needed somebody different, but particularly someone from outside the Department of Justice who can come in and be truly independent.
Right, expecting a different result from the person who has done nothing but favors for Hunter Biden and the Biden family at this point is the definition of insanity. New reaction from Republican 2024 candidates to President Trump's fourth indictment in Georgia.
The reality is when you have a police state that overreaches as much as it has, they need to be held accountable.
It's more baggage that we're going to have to deal with, and it prevents Republicans from talking about the problems of Hunter Biden. It prevents us from talking about how Joe Biden administration is failing to deal with the Chinese government.
I feel the same way as I felt about the other three. It's another example of two-tiered system of justice, incredibly unfair.
Even a Washington Post columnist said the Georgia indictment could be one too many. Ruth Marcus writes, why stop at Georgia? The federal indictment sets out conduct in 6 other states. Will he be prosecuted in those states too? At some point, it becomes unfair, yes, even to Trump, to go state by state. That's why the federal approach is preferable. How do you see it, Phil?
Well, Georgia's racketeering or RICO law is very broad. In this case, I think she stretched it too far. She cited some conduct outside the bounds of Fulton County, Georgia. She cited some things elsewhere in Georgia and some things in some other states. But she's also alleging these overt acts in furtherance of a conspiracy. She's alleging some things that occurred in the Oval Office with the sitting president of the United States, who is conversing and doing things with his legal advisors, his attorneys, and his political advisors. I don't think that our federal system of government ever contemplated a local prosecutor using some state racketeering law to be able to reach into the Oval Office and criminalize what is political speech and political conduct. We can't criminalize political speech because of the First Amendment, among other things. We can't criminalize legal strategies that are unsuccessful either. Lawyers present arguments in court every day that don't work. That's how courts work. So if we start charging people with a crime because they followed the advice of a lawyer and that lawyer's theory turns out to be incorrect, then we are on the worst slippery slope that you can imagine. It will lead to the all sorts of things, potentially even the end of our nation as we know it, because we can't criminalize all these things that are protected by the First Amendment. That's why we have the First Amendment. They literally are punishing Donald Trump for petitioning the government for redress of grievances when he makes phone calls to secretaries of state in Georgia and when they make a presentation to our state Senate here in Georgia. That's petitioning the government for redress of grievance. It's classic First Amendment stuff.
As the Wall Street Journal editorial board writes, in the Georgia case, every half-baked tweet from President Trump is presented as another RICO act. That's the depth of crazy in that case. Phil Holloway, thank you so much. Great to see you.
Great to be with you, as always.
A massive rescue operation in Maui after the deadliest wildfires in a century ripped across that island. 106 people have died, hundreds still unaccounted for.
It hurts. I don't even like thinking about it because it hurts so bad.
Very hard to see this.
Not just me, lost everything. But, everybody.
Heartbreaking stories from Maui residents, including one woman whose family lost everything. She shared these videos of the destruction and recounts a terrifying story trying to reunite with her husband and son. Heather Gannis joins us next, live from Maui.
I'm going to travel to Hawaii as soon as we can. That's what I've been talking to the governor about. I don't want to get in the way. I've been to too many disaster areas, but I want to go make sure we got everything they need. I want to be sure we don't disrupt the ongoing recovery efforts.
President Biden finally announcing a plan to visit Maui after facing backlash over what critics are calling a slow response. Devastated wildfire victims are in urgent need of relief. Search and rescue missions are still underway in hopes of finding any survivors. 106 people are now confirmed dead, hundreds still missing. Fox Weather's Max Gordon is in Maui with the very latest. Max.
Hey there, Dagan. So much heartbreak, so much sadness here as the death toll creeps ever higher. A mobile morgue has been brought to the island, and of the 106 confirmed dead, only 5 have been identified. Officials here saying it is going to be a long, painstaking process of identifying all of the dead. People here on the island are being encouraged to give DNA swabs to help identify loved ones as search crews continue to comb through the rubble in Lahaina. More than 2,200 buildings in the town have been damaged or destroyed by the fire, the majority of them homes belonging to longtime residents like this couple.
Very hard to see this. It's like all my life put in, it's all gone in a minute.
Not just me, lost everything. Everybody. Everything's gone.
Still no official word on why this fire started, but a new video taken the morning of the fire might shed some light on how all this happened. Downed power lines, a fire burning nearby, winds whipping. This was the scene earlier on the same day a wildfire ravaged the town of Lahaina. Hawaiian Electric currently faces a class action lawsuit alleging that the utility company ignored weather warnings and kept their lines electrified amid gusty winds in high fire danger. Meanwhile, volunteers continue to step up to help the fire victims as food, water, and other supplies supplies arrive on the island. Many people in Lahaina now have no homes or jobs. But a little silver lining in all this, the road next to me, the road to Lahaina, now open for residents and regular people alike. Just a small sign of normalcy returning to this island that has endured so much heartbreak. Back to you.
Max, thank you for that reporting. Max Gordon on the island of Maui. Let me bring in Heather Gannis. She's a Maui resident. Heather, you were in California when the fire swept through Lahaina, and have you been able to reunite with your son and husband? And just tell us what you found.
Yes, I've made it back to Maui. I am currently on the west side with my son and husband. We have been reunited. We went to see our home yesterday, and there's nothing left. Nothing left. Our town is devastated.
Heather, where are you and your family staying right now?
We're staying at a vacation rental in Kahana. We have a few days there, thanks to a wonderful family who has shared their vacation home with us.
What do you need? What do the people of Lahaina need? Just talk about what you've seen in terms of the federal response, but also Will Kane, who's been on the ground, has talked about the community response and the community coming together and how that has just been incredible to witness.
It's been amazing. Hawaii and Lahaina especially, we're a close town. We're a small town. We know each other. You can't go into the grocery store without running into someone you know. And everyone has come together from the other side of the island, from other islands. Before we even got any help from off island, our island people had us covered. We are just in awe of the outpouring of aloha and love, and we've been fed. We have clothes. We have necessities because of all the people who have just rallied together to help Lahaina. And it's just been amazing to witness. The aloha spirit is still very much alive in Hawaii.
What would you like to see from the federal government?
We're all living day to day, being told that when visitors come back that we will have to leave these vacation homes that we're in, and we don't know where we're going to go. That's the hardest thing for us right now. We just want to give our a tiny bit of normalcy and have a place that we can stay even at least a couple weeks at a time. But we need long-term housing. And the West Side really could use some kind of schooling for our children so that they can see their friends, get together, have a tiny bit of normalcy. That's a huge, huge thing that many people are worried about for our kids.
Why these fires?
And anything else that you need before we go, Heather? Any final words you'd like to share with our audience?
Please keep us in your prayers and continue to think of Maui and Lahaina. We're going to need help in the long haul, not just this week, but for many, many weeks and months to come. This is going to be a long road, and there are hundreds and hundreds of families that have been devastated and have lost everything.
Heather Gannis, blessings, and we will pray for the people of Maui today and every day. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you.
The new Fox Power rankings are out 1 week from the first GOP debate.
If there's going to be something that disrupts where this thing looks like it's headed today, ground zero starts in Iowa. And I think what I found there is that there's an awful lot of voters who are still shopping around. They want to see the debate next week.
The front runner and contenders in the GOP primary field, plus the one candidate not named Trump, showing some big momentum.
Xin chào tất cả các bạn, chào mừng các bạn đến với kênh của mình. Hôm nay mình sẽ hướng dẫn các bạn móc một chiếc dép chùm nho. Để móc được một chiếc dép như này, đầu tiên mình sẽ móc lên 10-30 móc xích, sau đó mình sẽ móc dần lên để tạo được phần đế. Sau khi móc xong phần đế thì mình sẽ tạo một vị trí của phần quai dép này, mình sẽ móc lên 50 móc đơn và móc lên 12 hàng. Sau khi móc xong mình sẽ móc phần từng quả nho một. Quả nho này thì mình sẽ tạo vòng tròn móc thuật, móc lên 20 móc xích, sau đó mình sẽ móc vào đây 60 móc đơn, 60 kép đơn. Sau khi móc xong thì mình sẽ móc phần cuống nho. Mình sẽ cắn các phần lại với nhau để tạo thành một chiếc dép nho như này. Nếu các bạn thích video này, hãy cho mình một like, một share, một subscribe nhé. Nào, bây giờ chúng ta cùng bắt đầu. Chúng ta chuẩn bị các nguyên liệu vật liệu sau đây: một cọng len màu xanh lá cây, một cọng len màu tím nhạt, một cọng len màu tím đậm, một cây móc, một cây kéo, một cây súng bắn keo và một cây kim. Mình sẽ tạo một nút thắt. Ô lên cho mình 13 mũi móc xích. Sau đó mình móc lên 11 mũi móc đơn.